Welcome to AP Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Al Pilong, CEO of AP Leadership Partners, an executive coaching practice centered around a passion for effective leadership. There are two things I know for sure about leadership. First, leadership is hard. And second, leadership matters. And so my hope today is that through the course of this conversation, you will find fresh ideas and inspiration for your challenging but important leadership journey ahead. Thanks for listening. The AP Leadership Podcast is sponsored by CXO Coaching, an executive coaching firm focused on empowering leaders and driving results. And now, let's get started. Leadership is easy to talk about, but much harder to live, especially under pressure. In today's episode, we will explore why leaders fail, why some succeed, and what servant leadership actually looks like when the stakes are real. To help us unpack that, I'm joined by Carlos Scholz, CEO of Catalysis, an organization committed to helping leaders build better systems, stronger cultures, and higher healthcare value. Carlos is a deeply experienced lean practitioner who has led transformation work in both healthcare and manufacturing. Before stepping into the CEO role at Catalysis, he led operations and lean management system development at the Permanente Medical Group and New York City Health and Hospitals. He's a Shingo Rising Star and a fellow of America's Essential Hospitals. But more importantly, he's someone who has spent his career helping leaders turn principles into practice. Welcome, Carlos. It's really good to have you on. I appreciate you joining me today. Since you've joined Catalysis last year, I've really enjoyed getting to know you a bit as a member of your faculty and just to see how Catalysis is really making a difference in the world of healthcare and beyond. Before we get into the questions and the conversation, maybe you could talk a little bit more about yourself, your background for the audience.
Yeah, thank you very much, Al. I'm really honored to be here with you today and spend some time talking about some fun topics on leadership. To tell you a little bit about myself in my career, I actually started my career in manufacturing. I'm originally from Mexico, went to school there, graduated from my industrial engineering degree, and I started working in manufacturing. I was very lucky to start my career just learning about lean and lean manufacturing from day one in the job. And after that, I actually transitioned to healthcare, first in a public hospital system in New York City, and then later in the Permanente Medical Group in California, where I was able to create a lasting management system. Dr. John Toussaint called me last year and say, hey, you should probably come and help us here at Catalysis. It's such an honor to be a part of this organization and to be able to have the impact in healthcare.
Before we hit the record button, you were telling me a little bit about a book that you've recently read that felt had a really big impact on you. So why don't we start with that? Tell me about the book and why and how it impacted you.
It all started when I found this quote by the former Prime Minister of Singapore. His name is Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. But the quote was, "The task of leaders must be to provide or create people a strong framework within which they can learn, work hard, be productive, and be rewarded accordingly." So that quote really stuck with me because that's the type of leader that we are actually striving to build. The book is called The Singapore Story, Memoirs from Lee Kuan Yew. So I think what really stood out is the connection to what we do as leaders.
That kind of dovetails into the conversation around aspirational leadership and the types of leaders that we want to be, that we want to help others become. Why don't you riff on that a little bit?
Number one, it starts with true north. Everything at the end of the day starts with identifying what are the things that we're really trying to do. In the case of Singapore, and for this particular leader, it was very, very clear that their true north was jobs, housing, safety, and cultural cohesion. Number two, they treated the building of the government as if it was the building of a management system. It was about creating durable institutions that later became, think about it like the operating system of the country. The third thing is creating stability through what I call standard work. It was about creating reliable standards. Consistent enforcement of the rule of law became part of the standards that reduce variation for their citizen. And number four relates to a relentless focus on delivering value for their citizens. And this is very specifically mentioned in the book. One of the most fascinating things is how they consider policy kind of like as a set of experiments. So they almost have this scientific thinking in mind, like this PDSA thinking. They were very, very pragmatic and they value pragmatism over ideology. So when they develop policies, they were like, we're going to go and test. If it works, we're going to keep enhancing it. If it doesn't work, we're going to move on from there and try something different. So there are a lot of ways in which it really translates to the type of leadership we're trying to build, creating the conditions in which all of that can happen.
So let's translate this to leadership, right? So I get the broader story of Singapore and the memoir that he wrote and everything that happened there. But this is a conversation about leaders and the type of leaders we aspire to be and we're trying to help others to become. Translate, if you will, briefly. So what does that mean as a leader, to have my true north, to understand my operating system, my standards of work, and the value that I'm trying to create? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, to me, it's about understanding where you are as a leader, understanding your current condition, and understanding where do I need to take my organization? How do I need to show up? And having the humility and the vulnerability to understand that you may not be there and that you're not going to be the type of leader that you need to achieve it all by yourself. You and I were having a conversation the other day over LinkedIn, I remember, about how leadership is about letting go more than about control, right? So if it's about letting go and creating the conditions in which people understand their role in the organization and how they contribute to it, and then you provide them with the capability that they need to be able to achieve that, then what do you need as a leader to be able to do that? Well, you need to become a leader that actively listens and becomes empathetic, right? A type of leader that takes time to understand their perspectives, validating their experiences. Number two, once you understand that, is how do you actually remove the roadblocks that are preventing those things from actually happening? Like, what is preventing you from having conversations with the people and obtaining their perspectives? Or if they're experiencing hardships at work, what's causing that? And what is your role in helping solve that? The number three thing is empowerment. I think empowering individuals to be able to become their best selves is really, really important. You and I were talking the other day about Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso is a great show. He may not know anything about soccer, but his role is to be a coach. And I believe there's an episode in which he says, I know I'm not a soccer expert, but I'm a coach and I know what that represents.
Yeah.
And I know my role is to be able to get all of those individuals to, number one, work as a team. Number two, become the very best versions that they can be. That's the type of leader that I think we should be aspiring to.
Yeah, for sure. Very good overview. Why don't we talk just briefly about servant leadership? What do you see, and how do you see that applying in today's world?
I think at the beginning of it all, it starts with having clarity about what your purpose is. Why do you even want to be a leader to begin with? If you want to be a leader just because of power, I think that you're in the position for the wrong purpose. If you're in the position from the perspective of serving and helping others growth, you are in the right place. And I think servant leadership starts with clearly defining what is that purpose, and then starts to connect everything else, your intent and your actions and how you show up as leader, to that particular purpose. What do you think?
I think it is about understanding what really matters, what drives you, and being other focused. Oftentimes in leadership, we are taught or we see leadership modeled that it's about the leader, their intensity, their charisma, their vision, their IQ, whatever it might be, their idea. And so it really then wraps around the person, the leader. And what we're trying to do in leadership is create and contribute to a sustainable generation that can carry on and can continue and can grow from where they are today. And so I do think the idea of serving, the idea of allowing others the opportunity to step up and to have a legacy that's not about you, that you get a statue or something, but that really is about how you impacted other lives, how you impacted care, how you impacted whatever area that you're working in. People remember you for the impact you've had on them as a person and not for what you did in terms of your output as a leader.
There's a book that I really like from Simon Sinek. It's called Leaders Eat Last.
Yeah.
Leadership is about sacrifice ourselves as leaders, ensuring that we put the needs of others ahead of ours. Quick example, safety as a prerequisite for improvement. I firmly believe as a servant leader, if you go and ask people to improve and you say, this is what matters and this is in ways in which you can contribute and you give them that capability, if they don't feel safe in doing it, they're still not going to do it.
Yeah, and ultimately, if you can create as a leader the environment that allows people to speak up, to contribute, to share ideas, that's an organization, that's an environment where improvement's going to happen because people are encouraged and frankly even rewarded for speaking up, for identifying. And that's not always the case in many organizational cultures.
Leadership is the one that is going to create the right conditions in which that thing that worked can be sustainable and reliable over time. And that requires a lot of sacrifice and presence and protection. And actually, a good servant leader will identify, I see that you're struggling. I need to learn about the process myself. Why is this continuing to happen? And how can we all come up with the solutions? And then saying things very, very clearly and specifically. This is hard work. I don't have all the answers. We all have the answers. If you have a problem, speak up, and that's going to be celebrated, not punished in any way. And actually demonstrating those things is part of being a servant leader.
Yeah, for sure. Very well said. And, it is really about how you show up. It's about the questions you ask. You can't fake servanthood. It has to come from your heart. You have to care about people genuinely, not because they are tools to get something done, but because you care about them as people. And if you really support the team, they're gonna run through a wall for you or for their customer. And that's really the kind of organization that is sustainable and leaves a lasting legacy.
So a servant leader is not only someone that is going to say, oh, I'm feeling good about this thing that I'm trying and doing, but would also make sure that the experience that others are having is actually working.
You have to make sure, right, you're not isolated at the top, right? I mean, because if you're not really feeling the pulse of the team, so you might be feeling great, but you're not aware that maybe the rest of the organization is struggling. And so creating the environment, going to and seeing, listening, asking good questions, really having a finger on the pulse of what's happening with your team, with the front lines, with your customers, your patients, whatever it might be. To me, that's a way to make sure you're connected as a leader and not isolated. So important component as well. Well, as we wrap up here, maybe any final thought you'd like to share with the audience around leadership?
Yeah. What I'm seeing in the industry, specifically in the healthcare industry right now, is it's going through a lot of disruption. I think there are a lot of forces out there that are really worrying, specifically the federal government implementing some recent changes in their policy and the cuts that may accompany that. For a lot of organizations, it's really going to impact. A lot of leaders are also looking at the short-term solution, looking at technology first. If you're a leader in healthcare right now, looking at the short-term solution it looks like the right thing to do, but it might not be the long-term fix that you're really looking for. I think at the end of the day, after all of the disruption, and disruption is really not going to go away. Healthcare is in constant disruption all the time, whether it's
It is.
technological or politics or financial or any other way. I think a strong root on principles, it's still needed. I firmly believe that there's a set of principles that if you root all of your purpose and your type of leadership on, you will get ahead of everybody else. At the end of the day, is what is your role in creating the right conditions for the organization to be wired in such a way that they can respond to their problems faster than they're actually showing up. And that requires very specific principles like respecting every individual, like leading with humility, like creating constancy of purpose, like focusing on the process. You may get some wins and results in the short term just by following a traditional type of leadership, but I firmly believe that while you can accomplish results in the short term, you need to be looking always at the long term. And you and I have discussed today about servant leadership and how does that look like in a systemic way in an organization. I will challenge leaders to think, what do we have to do in an organization to accomplish just that? To accomplish a way in which all of us as leader in the organization can add the level of value that we need to add to those that are serving our patients, the doctors, the nurses, the techs, the medical assistants, the pharmacists, the x-ray techs, etc., that are on the front line every day experiencing what delivering value is about. And what do you have to do as a leader to develop yourself to realize what it takes to deliver that value, and then transforming all of that into creating the right culture to accomplish your true north at the end of the day? Yeah, I really think that there's a lot of opportunity out there for leaders. I always say it's a gift to develop yourself. So keep developing yourself as a leader. It's a gift not only to yourself, but to others. The more you continue on a learning path, the more you're going to help others and serve others, which is why we're here at the end of the day, because we're leaders, because we serve people.
Yeah, there's no doubt that healthcare is going through seismic disruption. You know, over the course of my career, I've been in healthcare for almost 40 years, and you go through waves and waves of change and transformation and challenge, and every time it seems bigger and harder than the last. And there's no question that this is as big and as hard as it's ever been. All the more reason why we need as leaders to double down on our leadership principles, because oftentimes when the pressure goes up, our principles go out the window. But we really need to be focused on doing things the right way, especially when the pressure is the highest, because that's how you get through it in the right way. And that's how you come out the other side without casualties, without loss. But that's a lot easier said than done, I understand. Principle-based leadership is necessary in today's moment in healthcare and in business in general. So thanks, Carlos. Thanks for being with me today. Appreciate your insights, and we'll certainly be seeing each other along the way. Thanks.
Thank you, Al. Happy to be here, and I'll see you all very soon.
Thanks for listening. Leadership is rarely simple and it's rarely easy, and that's exactly why it matters. My hope is that something from today's conversation gave you a moment to pause, reflect, or see your leadership in a new way. Until next time, lead well.